Welcome back to the Piping Pastor. Today we'll be discussing the glory of aging through the poetry of Philip Larkin and the book of Proverbs. Well, hello. Today I am smoking out of my new Mearsome Churchwarden, which I had already described briefly on one of my Theology Talks videos. And in it, I am smoking some Three Nuns tobacco. I think I've decided that I'm going to dedicate this pipe to straight Virginias and vapors, mainly because of the Navy capstan, or pardon me, the capstan Navy cut, which I also described in my Theology Talks videos. Well, as some of you may have noticed, I've given it a go with the beard again recently. If you've seen my Instagram page, you've seen one of the pictures of me with the full beard, which I wore for several years. It's only been in the last couple of years where I've been gone with a clean shaven look. And to be honest with you, probably a few more days and this is going to go away again. I actually rather like the beard, and I think I got a YouTube comment about the fact that I needed some facial hair, which I wholeheartedly agree with. However, I'm not the only person in my house, and the general opinion is that I am better beardless. So I imagine it will be going away. But in the process of growing this back out for the first time in a couple of years, I noticed there's a great deal more gray in it than there was just 2 years ago. Which of course got me on the topic of aging, and I've never been one to think about fighting the natural aging process of using various different creams or surgical methods in order to make myself look younger and chasing youth culture and so on and so forth. If that's your thing, then by all means, knock yourself out. To each his own. But that's never been my idea. As I think is evident by my style choices, which I am today mixing blue, green, and gray. This tie I have with a gray greenish cast to it and blue nodules, which you can't probably see too clearly on this video. I thought, hey, this goes pretty nicely with my gray suit, and I'll just offset it with a little green pocket square, and then everything kind of ties in together. The only thing I'm lacking is a piece of jewelry with a green stone. So I need to get myself an accent ring with a dark emerald or something. But in any case, fashion choices, facial hair choices, all these various different things reflect my age, which I am never been bothered by. But I realize a great deal many of people are. And Philip Larkin certainly has something to say about it as well. Now, those of you familiar with Larkin's verse will probably see where this is going. His view is not, let's say, the most positive. But something else I should mention about this churchwarden is that it is very well made. And I mentioned about the thickness of the bowl and the fact that I don't have to protect my hand and so forth. But it's a clenchable churchwarden. It's actually easier to clench than my Boswell billiard, because it's such a thick, meaty piece of briar. This one fits rather comfortably and rather well. Although, I mean, honestly, a big part of the churchwarden is holding it. In whatever way you choose. But for writers and so forth, I know the author style of pipe is more designed around that, and there's a great deal of debate about why it's called a churchwarden and the shape and how it relates to the position of a churchwarden and the hands-free method of smoking it in various different arguments and so on and so forth. I simply like the style, and I like the fact that it's functional in that when you smoke a really hot tobacco of Virginia and so forth, the smoke has a bit more time to cool before it gets to your mouth. So, without further ado, Philip Larkin. Now, this one comes out of his collection, High Windows. And the title of this one is Old Fools. What do they think has happened, the old fools, to make them like this? Do they somehow suppose it's more grown up when your mouth hangs open and drools and you keep on pissing yourself and can't remember who called this morning? Or that, if they only chose, they could alter things back to when they danced all night, or went to their wedding, or sloped arms some September? Or do they fancy there's really been no change, and that they've always behaved as if they were crippled or tight, or sat through the days of thin, continuous dreaming, watching light move? If they don't, and they can't, it's strange. Why aren't they screaming? At death, you break up. The bits that were you start speeding away from each other forever with no one to see. It's only oblivion. True, we had it before, but then it was going to end, and was all the time merging with a unique endeavor to bring bloom the million-powered petaled flower of being here. Next time, you can't pretend there'll be anything else, and these are the first signs. Not knowing how, not hearing who, the power of choosing gone. Their looks show that they're for it. Ash hair and toad hands, prune face dried into lines. How can they ignore it? Perhaps being old is having lighted rooms inside your head and people in them acting. People you know yet can't quite name. Each looms like a deep loss restored. From known doors turning, setting down a lamp, smiling from a stare, extracting a known book from the shelves, or sometimes only the rooms themselves, chairs and a fire burning, the blown brush at the window, or the sun's faint friendliness on the wall, some lonely rain-ceased midsummer evening. That is where they live. Not here and now, but where all happened once. This is why they give an air of baffled absence, trying to be there, yet being here. For the rooms grow farther, leaving incompetent, cold, constant wear and tear of taken breath, and them crouching below extinction's alp. The old fools, never perceiving how near it is. This must be what keeps them quiet. The peak that stays in view wherever we go, for them is rising ground. Can they never tell what is dragging them back, and how it will end? Not at night, not when the strangers come, never throughout the whole hideous inverted childhood? Well, we shall find out. It's a wonderful poem, if a bit bleak, but of course it's Larkin. The idea that there's these old people sitting there and Larkin's observing them, and they seem somehow absent. They seem constricted, tight, old. They look old. They're acting old. It seems as if their mental capacities have been somehow infringed or limited. They're living in the past inside their heads. There's nothing for it. Just sitting there, decaying, forgetting, not really being present. It almost seems as if these people that Larkin is writing about have nothing left to do, nothing left to contribute. Nothing left to do but ascend that peak that is ultimately death. He ends it by referring to it as an inverted childhood, being taken care of until the absolute end. And then he ends it by, well, we shall find out. We're all going to be there. We're all going to end up there, and it's going to be just like this. Say, not a lot of hope in that. It's a rather lengthy, well, not lengthy poem. I mean, talking like Milton, it's not a lengthy poem, but it's a lengthy description of something that the Bible answers in rather short order. So for that, set my pipe down for a moment. We can look to the book of Proverbs. which is, of course, the book of wisdom. And this is, as I think I've mentioned this before in discussions of Proverbs, the Prince's Mirror, and so forth, and this genre of literature within the Bible that offers us wisdom from a deep, deep place. Now, Larkin was a very intelligent man, great poet, great insight into human character, but one man, one lifetime, even pulling on history and those who have come before. This is ancient wisdom. So while Philip Larkin may be oldish wisdom, 50s, 60s, this is millennia. So this is what we have here in chapter 20, verse 29. The glory of youth is their strength, but the beauty of the aged is their gray hair. Very short, very simple. The glory of youth is their strength, but the beauty of the aged is their gray hair. So, yes, when you're young, you're strong, you're fast, you're quick. And that is your glory. That is where you're meant to be. That is the place of life where you are. And that's okay. That's how things are supposed to be. When you get older, your gray hair is not something to lament because you've lost that youth and vigor of an 18 to 24-year-old. No. We have stages of life, and different stages mean different things. When you're young, when you're old, we have a tendency in the United States especially, but I would say in Western cultures generally, to worship youth, to lift up youth as the ideal. You see it in advertising all over the place. Popular culture is imbued with the idea of the youth. Whenever I encounter anything on YouTube, there's always some kind of youthful bent to it, because that's what people desire, because they look back to the strength and vigor of their bodies. They look back to the times when they could accomplish things physically that maybe they can't anymore, and they think that they've somehow lost something. You haven't lost it. You've moved beyond it. You've progressed. You're something new and something different now. But that doesn't mean that the glory is lost. The beauty of the aged is their gray hair. The beauty of the aged is that wisdom, that progression. We don't need just to sit around and do nothing. I have a great friend and partner in ministry who's been working in ministry for well over 50 years and still is serving in ministry. I know several men and women who in their 70s could very well have retired and done nothing and just been, laid back, whatever. And they're still leading churches. They're still teaching classes. There are still things to do. And it's not like, you're still of some use. No, it's not you're still of some use. You are of use. You do have value, no matter what your age is. You're not just sitting there with your head as an empty room with false actors, waiting to ascend the peak, dreading the rising ground. Step forth boldly. Step out boldly. Be bold. Being old is not bad, but being young isn't either. Well, that's all we have for this time. So by all means, check out the other series of videos on Theology Talks. We'll be discussing things related to this in my series on theological anthropology. And in the meantime, have a great week, and as always, happy reading.